Hey guys, Shane McMurray from the Wedding Report. In this episode, I interview Elaine, who is the owner of Kindred Oaks Venue north of Austin in the Georgetown area. They also have a flower shop and they also have a wedding chapel. So it's a great interview. Enjoy. So let's talk about your business, what you do. Tell me what city you're in, and you can mention your website or your Instagram or whatever you want to talk about there. So let's talk about your business, what you do, and all that good stuff.
Okay. We are a venue, a wedding venue, and we actually have multiple things that we do. We have a wedding venue that we started back in 2003. Then we saturated our dates, and so trying to figure out what to grow with, we opened up a flower shop in 2009.
Nice.
And then in 2018, we built a chapel, and so we just kind of continue. So we've been at this 16 years.
Wow, that's great. Congratulations for being in business so long. That's pretty good.
Yeah, we're north of Austin. So Georgetown is our address.
Okay.
Leander annexed us, so we kind of use both.
Okay, so you're north of Austin area, right?
Mm-hmm.
How far north of Austin?
About 20 miles as the bird flies, about 30, 40 minutes.
Okay.
From downtown.
So what kind of venue do you guys have? What kind of venue? Is it a ranch? Is it a?
I would say it's kind of evolved. I would say that when we first started, I would say it was definitely more rustic. That was real popular at the time, and so that's what we did. And when I say at the time, there wasn't much,
Mm-hmm.
So we were kind of one of a few. But it was homey, and it still has that kind of general vibe, I would say, but we've definitely brought it more upscale a little bit, just kind of trying to keep current with the brides and what they're looking for. And I don't feel like we've ever put ourselves into a box where we're only one type of thing. So a lot of different women will use us for a bunch of different purposes. We've seen, black tie ball here. We've seen barefoot and, hippy dippy. So.
That's awesome. And so you said you opened up a chapel. So what's your target there? Like just to do like people that want to do like an elopement type thing, and then?
It was multifaceted. I felt like several years ago, I kind of saw trends kind of turning towards smaller. I wanted to be a part of that because our venue is big and it holds 250. And I knew that people were starting to go a little bit more intimate. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to capture that business, but I also didn't want to take away from what we had here. And so I also have I have an artistic background. I was in fine art school. And so I thought, boy, it'd be really nice to have a real modern kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so that really appealed to me from an artistic standpoint. And so I thought, well, if we built something very small and very modern, it would capture a completely different clientele that would not compete with what we have here. And that's what we did. So it's it's an uber modern structure, and it only holds 30 wow. people. It can accommodate more because of the way it's built with an elliptical patio. And then I do have those few brides who are more wired like me, and they're left and right brained. And so they'll get married at the chapel and then climb up the hill, and we have the reception here.
Nice. That's great. So like, tell me about like what goes into preparing for a day. So, or let's back up. Maybe tell me about what goes into like you get a lead. What's the work that goes into like getting ready for their day and preparing, all that stuff?
Boy, that's a loaded question. We are a full-time, full-service organization here. So we have office hours that we hold every day, 7 days a week. So it's not a minimal amount of work. It's a career for sure. And I would say that from the time of a lead, it's maintaining a venue that looks worthy of coming out to visit, of course. And then you've got a sales team or whatever you want to call that. And so you're visiting with that client. You have full service packages and services that we offer. So We try to be multifaceted so they can go a la carte if they wish and just get the venue and go off
Okay.
on their own and get their own vendors, with a couple of exceptions. And then, but probably the meat, bread and butter of our business is our package system. And so 75–80% opt into that.
Nice.
So we're handling a lot. And so day to day, it's just kind of a lot of emailing and phone calling those brides, making sure that they've checked all those boxes off before they get to the day. There's meetings that we hold. We have in-house linens. We purchased our own linens years ago. And so it's kind of a one-stop shop in a lot of ways. So with the flower shop that's on site and it's a daily thing, man.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. So you said you have packages. Do you find that most couples are going with a package deal? I feel like that's where their head is. Like, give me something that's
Without
easy
a
to understand.
doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
It's definitely grown over the years. I mean, we've been offering them for probably easy 10 years, I guess.
Right.
They've evolved certainly with what the
Sure.
girls are wanting, but boy, more and more are wanting just like all of it done for you. They want it customized, and it does depend on the girl. But boy, there's some that are just like, let me show up with the dress.
Really?
And the guy.
You're right.
Girl, case maybe. Yeah.
Whichever they want. Yeah. Do you so you said about 70 or 80% is packaged. I mean, it's really kind of like a starting package, and then do you feel like most of them customize that afterwards, or say, hey, I'm not really interested in that piece or whatever, but let's start there?
We don't do it that way. It's not a build your own. The whole reason that we even ever started packages, believe it or not, was not motivated by money. It was motivated by access. It was motivated by fluidity, making sure that the success of the day was better, and it reduced the amount of what we call red flags waving at weddings. The impact that made on the day, we wanted to minimize that. And so we surrounded ourselves with basically pre-vetted vendors that they felt like, okay, I want to attach myself to this because I know it's going to be smooth.
Yeah.
And so that made our job smooth. So we offer our packages pretty much set with the types of vendors that we have in there, but there's customization within it. So for instance, the flower shop, of course, if they're going to opt into a package, I'm certainly going to use my own flower shop.
Right. Yeah.
But they're award winning. They go all over the city of Austin and Dripping Springs and beyond. So they're everywhere, and there's no reason to not use them. And so it's customized though. They're going to decide what they want. It just happens to be our shop. DJs, they get a choice of DJs. So they're not stuck with just one personality. They have a choice in the matter. But at least I know who those 3 DJs are. I know that they're good at what they do. I can make sure that the dance floor is going to be hopping and they're going to be happy campers at the end of the night. And so, yeah.
So, yeah, that makes sense. So it's really about making sure the event goes smooth. They're going to be happy with what happens and what takes place. That totally makes sense. What am I looking at starting package? Like, let's say I have 100 people for my wedding. I come to you, and what am I looking at to start at?
That's probably somewhere around 13,000, kind of depending on what they're looking for. What the package does not include, is I always tell people, is as important as what is included. So we include most of the elements that you see at a given wedding, but we don't take care of the photography, the officiant, and the baker. And so those, we leave them. And so that even further customizes it on their end to feel like, oh, it's not a rubber stamp, everything is still very much them.
Yeah, so basically you're including like the place, the food, the bar, their linens and rentals, if necessary, that you would normally have to buy elsewhere. Yeah.
The bartender, the day of coordinator, in addition to that, the DJ. We even teach a marriage class out here.
Oh, nice.
And have for, I guess, 11 years.
That's great. Yeah. We probably need more of those, huh?
We do. Yes.
All right. So what advice would you have for couples that are getting married today? Like,
not to borrow money to do it, which is, oh man, that's a struggle. It really is. Well, I was just talking to my bookkeeper about that. I wish that they didn't. It's kind of like student loans. You know, I hate seeing them go into debt to make it happen, and they need to stay within the box that they've got and not be ashamed of it. You know, if you can only afford X, then stay within X. You know, not to overdo would be one thing from a financial standpoint. From a personal standpoint, um, that's probably a little trickier. I think that a wedding doesn't define the couple. You know, I feel like you
Yeah.
can make. I got married in my backyard. You know, so it doesn't. That should not be at the end of the day what they're looking to do. Um, I think they need to focus on them. I think often these days they kind of focus on that party, which is there's nothing wrong with that. But I wish they devoted a little bit more time to crafting what they're doing and what they're saying to one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That's good advice.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the business side of this. And uh, so, what would you say is kind of working well from a leads perspective, like for your business? What's working well today in getting leads into your on the phone or through your email or out to see you? What's working well with that?
I would say that our chief number one for us is word of mouth, just because we are just one of the few lucky ones this far in 16 years to have that organic reach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've just had over 1,200 weddings under our belt, so that does a lot for us. Outside of that, I would say that we experiment a lot. If something doesn't work, then we shelve it and we try something new. And what did work before doesn't necessarily mean it will in the future, and what didn't work before doesn't spell doom. So we're very open-minded about that. We certainly still have a reach online as far as social media for sure, but as far as paid advertising goes, we use the Knot, we use Wedding Wire. Haven't always used the Knot. In fact, I'm only a 3 years in, girl. Okay. So just kind of always looking. So those things work. We do monthly open houses here. We see a lot of people come in our doors that way. The website, my website's pretty powerful. I've had very good success with that. My daughter is my website developer, so to speak, and so she keeps us up to date, and we get a lot of traffic through that.
What's your website address?
KindredOaks.com.
All right, good. So you said you experimented a lot. That's good, because sometimes businesses don't really spend time experimenting with different ways to do things, or they might believe that a certain way works and they get frustrated, and then it's like, oh well, this whole thing doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've experienced some of those situations. It's not like, oh, well, sure. I thought that was going to work, right?
Oh, for sure.
So let's talk about one of those where you thought, oh man, this is going to be the best thing, and it didn't work. And
oh my gosh. Well, one of my biggest failures, I feel like, was many moons ago. I created something called Wedding Industry Outreach, and it was supposed to be a way to give back and tried to unify the industry, which it did to a large extent. But the failure part came in when we tried to create a kind of an advertising thing to let people know what we were about. Mm-hmm. And we decided, hey, we could kind of do what I can't remember that guy's name, Sun Moon. He used to marry 5,000 people at the same time. And we thought, what if we did something like that too? And we could marry 25 couples all at the same time. And we got everybody on board, and everybody was donating their services. This was like a dozen years ago. Mm-hmm. And we got 2 couples that were interested in that, and the lesson learned was that, it was like a $25,000 wedding given to them, but they didn't want to share their day. And it was like, wow, you can throw all kinds of money at a couple, but if it goes against the grain at that very special, moment for them, it ain't gonna work. Yeah. So that was a lesson learned for sure.
Yeah, I just read or saw something on TV like last week about China does this every year. They have like tens of thousands of people come and they get married all at the same time on the same day.
Yeah.
But the difference is there's 10 million people a year in China that get married, right? In the
Oh, wow.
US, there's only 2 million people a
Right.
year. And if
Yeah,
you're in a certain market, it's even less, right? So
exactly.
yeah, lesson learned, right?
It really was, and it was funny because another competitor just opened up and did something similar. When I saw that, and I thought, oh, every part of me wanted to reach out and go, "Don't do it. It's gonna hurt."
Yeah,
But I thought, well, it's not my thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the other side of um, what's not work. What we talk about what's working, but let's talk about what's not working right now. Would you say?
Our biggest challenge in this area is the oversaturation of the market. That's hands down. I don't think anybody could escape that question and come out with the same answer. So, and I think that is it just it demands adaptability, daily, weekly, monthly
Mhm.
adaptability. You have to continue to reinvent who you are and what you offer, and there are no guarantees, for anybody. And so I think that recognizing that and just trying to stay above the just where things are heading, and just constant, you can't let your guard down. And sometimes that is not only frustrating, it creates sleepless nights, but then you kind of settle in and go, okay, we're still going, and we're still making, and we're still doing, so things must be okay. But you can't rest.
Yeah.
No rest.
I find that a lot of times in business we figure out what our market is and we go, oh, there's this many weddings and people spend this much money, and then we realize that, but then when we don't get the business we expected, we we think it's this huge failure on the fact that, oh well, the market just doesn't deliver. But it, like you said, it's a challenge and you have to constantly reinvent yourself. Lately I have seen more venue spaces pop up than any time. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I think in the past 3 years I've seen more venue spaces pop up than any other time.
Yep.
More spaces convert to wedding space or
Yep.
event space. It's just
Crazy.
insane. Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
People want different things, right? I mean, there's so many opportunities and options, but you're right. You have to reinvent. I think that's really great advice and great
Yeah.
learnings, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Learned for sure.
Yeah. So what if if you had some specific advice you were going to give a business, right? What advice would you give them?
It's a really good question, and I'm asked it a lot. Um, when you have been around a good long time, you do have people who, the barrier to entry a long time ago would prohibit you from opening up venues on the speed that they're doing now. If you wanted to be a photographer, all you needed was a camera, so your barrier to entry was really low.
Hmm.
Venues, it's turned around though. It's become this niche thing. You got 5 acres. Let's turn it into a venue, which is really dangerous. I think people going into business today, my two pieces of advice would one be research. Uh, I'm amazed how many people go in and spend tons of money
Yeah.
without seeing truly what they're looking at, and what are the numbers, what does your market look like. And I lead them, actually, I swear you didn't pay me to say this, but I lead them to the wedding report. I really do. And I say, you need to buy into this, and you need to look up your zip code, and you need to look at your market and see how many weddings are. And I said, do the math. You need to really absorb that fact. The other piece of advice that I tell people is not to go all in all at once. I think that it was certainly not by any gift of intelligence for us. We went in not knowing what we were doing. We learned by the ropes, just like everybody. But I think one of the things that we, quote unquote, lucked into, or God blessed us just to go, yeehaw, thank you,
Hmm.
was that we went slow. We started off with a piece of land, and it had nothing. it was just a home, and we just slowly every year we would do a little bit here and a little bit there, and we'd make a little bit of money and we'd put that back in and we'd build this. And these folks that are putting in millions of dollars into these venues right from the get-go, you know, I fear that they're never going to see their return, not from the wedding industry. They may have to turn it into something else later, or get imaginative and have
Yeah.
two different, I don't know. I don't know what their situation is. I'm just thankful I'm not in their shoes.
Yeah. In the software development industry, because I'm a software engineer by trade, basically, but it's called, we call that minimum viable product, or MVP. So the thing is you have all these grand ideas to build this thing, but you have to scale it down in a way that you can deliver something, minimal viable product, right? MVP, and then you build on top of that. And then sometimes it takes, you know, a couple of years to really get to a place where you actually have a solid product that has a lot of stuff in it, right?
Yes.
The first release of that software might have 2 or 3 things that are the only things that it does, right? But that's the minimum viable product.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly what you're talking about, right? You've got this space, you're taking it slow, you put a little bit out, right? You take the money you earn from that, you reinvest it back in, right? And it's just a patience game, right? Like
It is. It really is.
being patient, right?
It's patience. And I think, you know, my father-in-law many years ago gave me a piece of advice when he loved the stock market. And I would sit there and I would get nervous and I'd think, oh my gosh, this makes me crazy. I can't do this. And he goes, no, no, no. You don't ride the tide. You don't rise and fall along with it. You just stay even keel, and things do tend to bring you a better return. And that was a very big piece of advice. And so just because something looked scary in the business market, I would, you know, your first tendency is to, but then I think, you know what? We just need to be patient and let this kind of ride out and see what happens. It doesn't mean that we don't, you know, adjust for that, but it does teach you patience. And maybe what I'm crafting here, I don't know whether my reign is going to end in a year or 5 years or 20, but I treat it like it's going to go on for a good long time until someone decides to take it from me. And so I just have to, but I think the mistake a lot of people are making is that I need to do this today.
Yeah.
And I need to open my doors tomorrow, and I've got to answer all the questions and check all the boxes and offer all the services today, or I'm going to miss out. And boy, those dominoes are going to fall.
Well, not only is that, but you can drive yourself nuts, right? Just
for sure. Well, and go broke doing it.
Yeah, well, that'll add to the stress, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, what do you think? I mean, that's great advice, but let's switch gears a little bit. So let's talk about like a story, and it could be your best story or your worst story, whatever you want to, and it could be about a wedding or it could be about business, whatever you want it to be. But best or worst story, what do you got for
me? I guess the most recent thing that has happened with this chapel, you know, we built this chapel and it was an amazing adventure, but it was also painful in a lot of ways. Very expensive. Did not see it costing as much as it did. Cost overruns. But it was really cool. It's very unique. It's something called a monolithic pour, and so you build a mold and you batten up all the seams and you pour, in our case, 425,000 pounds of concrete in it and hope it doesn't collapse. And so it was very artistic. It was a neat endeavor. But what I learned from it was that, number one, it looked like a bomb went off on our property.
Wow.
And with the wedding industry, it's such a unique industry. It's unlike any business industry out there in that what happens today, the very first person that walks on my property today will affect me not only today, but also a year from now, for the most part.
Yeah.
And so that was hugely detrimental to our business when we started building that project, because it looked like a bomb. And so when people came up, that was just something, it never dawned on me that would impact that clientele. And so, of course, booking them at that moment affected us. And then, of course, a year later, that vacancy affected us,
Yeah.
so the whole thing. So it was almost a 2-year cycle of like, wow, that hurt. But it was a lesson learned. And the outcome has been really cool because we've gotten a lot of press off of the chapel itself because it was on Texas Architect Magazine, all these things that I never saw coming either because that's not what I designed.
Right.
But also seeing it kind of going, okay, yeah, it really did answer the need that you thought it would. I think there were a lot of people, naysayers, that said, this ain't ever going to work and you're going to die trying. And I think initially I thought they were right. I thought, oh my God, what have we done? And so that would be the horror part of it. And there's a lot more detail to that. But kind of like that phoenix, we rose out of it. And I'm just a lady of faith. And I feel in my gut that I just felt like we were super protected from a lot of things. And also just there's value in going through those valleys. And we learned just sometimes trust what you really do know deep inside and to not let the naysayers
Yeah.
complicate things, but also to at the same time be listening that maybe there were some things we could have done differently.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of both our worst and our best story because it's coming alive and those couples are using it and they're booking and it's like, wow, this really did work, but oh my gosh, at what an expense.
Yeah, well, and to get there, right? Not just, money wise, right? But
Yeah,
emotional expense, the stress,
right,
everything you went through to make that happen. That's
exactly.
it's a great story.
Yeah.
Elaine, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Talk to you later.
Thank you. Have a
Okay.
good one.
Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. I hope that you found it helpful. Please share it with other people. Also, if you're getting married or you work in the wedding industry, I would love to interview and share your information with other people. Send me a text, 520-399-8580, or shoot me an email at letschat@wedding.report.